Also known as Conors' mom, you'll recognize my guest today from the wildly popular Netflix show Love on the Spectrum, where her and her family share their lives, primarily her son Conors as he navigates life on the spectrum. Lise opens up about parenting a child on the spectrum, what that was like when he was young, and what it's like now that he's a young man. She shares all the signs that were there and how her husband and doctor dismissed her concerns at the time, saying she was overreacting. After Conors' diagnosis at the age of 5, her marriage fell apart, and she was left raising 4 small kids alone, which she actually credits to making them have the strong bond they do today. Lise discusses how Conors' diagnosis affected him in school, with the teachers, and with the other kids. I ask her how the Netflix show has changed their lives, and she shares how Conor has dealt with the introduction of dating into his now life. You are going to love her story and this conversation. So without further ado, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Love on the Spectrum's Lise Smith. Okay, well, I am so excited for this episode. I feel like it's been a long time coming. I've been trying to get you on the show. I have Lise Smith here today from the wildly popular Netflix show, Love on the Spectrum, also popularly known as Conors' mom. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Do you get that a lot? I actually don't know I knew your actual first name because even on the show, they just put Conors' mom on your title. So I actually think I was surprised when I learned you had an actual first name.
I have a real name. Yes. No, I get it all the time.
So for everyone that has not watched Love on the Spectrum, can you just tell us just a little bit of how it came? How did it come into your life?
Sure. Well, obviously, I live with a young adult on the spectrum. So back in 2019, I actually was going through my Netflix and I saw this show and I thought, Love on the Spectrum. And then I looked at what a description, and it was basically young adults on the spectrum trying to find love. And my initial reaction was, oh, I'm going to watch this, and Netflix is getting a well-worded email, because I had made the assumption it was going to be not in a positive light or in some way, capitalizing or, not in a positive light on adults on the spectrum trying to find love. I ended up tuning in, and it was so wholesome and so wonderful and so respectful. I was hooked. And then I watched season 2 of Australia. And I made Conor sit and watch it with me. I was like, get in here. Because Michael.
What did he think?
So he at first was really uncomfortable with it, because this was in 2019. And I made him watch Michael, because I felt like Michael in Australia, to me, is the closest of what I could relate to my son. And he liked Michael. And he was like, well, yes, I do feel like this. Because I said, do you feel like this? Because I had always been so focused, Jen, on Conor getting out of high school and getting a job or going to college and ticking those boxes. I never thought about his personal needs as just a human. I feel bad admitting this as a mom, but his need for romance just didn't even get on my mom radar.
Because the other issues, I'm sure, seemed more pressing.
Yes. And just as his mom, I'm like, I want to launch you for success. And I just didn't think about his personal life. We also have a very large family, so socially, I felt like he was fine.
Getting enough.
He didn't
Can you
have
tell everybody? I feel like the word "the spectrum," like we hear about it so much, but can you kind of tell everybody like what that actually means when someone says, like, I'm on the spectrum or I have a child on the spectrum? What that actually means?
The language has changed so much, and what's right to say and not right to say. Like when Conor was diagnosed in the early 2000s, I was told he had Asperger's syndrome. That's what I was told. That is a no-go now. We don't say that anymore. Now it's level 1 autism. So
so Asperger's and autism are now considered the same thing?
Yes. So that's what, and then he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and then after we started treatment, he later then, I had other professionals say he was a little more moderately affected than Asperger's. So it just became like, I don't care what you want to call him or say. Let's just address the issues that are at hand. Let's just, I don't care. Call him polka dot. I don't care. Let's just address what's happening and help him be successful and comfortable and happy. So I think the spectrum is just that. I mean, I think ADHD they're considering that on the spectrum, OCD, all these neurodivergent diagnosis are this spectrum of neurological disorders that you could fall on. I mean, it's become a very confusing, muddy, big umbrella. I agree.
Yeah.
But my son is, I guess, considered level 1 autism now, is what I've read up as what's to say now.
Because even watching the show, I mean, you just can see there's just like this array of different kind of people and what they're dealing with. So that's why I was just curious as to what the spectrum.
It is. I mean, it's just like, I guess this vast array of issues or functioning or abilities, disability that just fall into, where he lands. And it's so different for every single person. I think it's just hard to categorize people. And I think everybody deserves to be served and helped with their issues, no matter what it is. And like I said, I got over what they wanted to call him or how... When he was younger, I was like, what's going to help get him services, especially for school support and all of that to be success? That's when I was like, okay, it was hard in the beginning when he got diagnosed to have these labels or things put on him. But I was on team, just get him services. So let's do what we have to do.
Well, I really want to talk about the show because the show is just, like I said, wildly successful. And Conor is just, he's got merch, he's got a fan club. He was my kid's favorite, like hands down. But I also really wanted this episode to be a resource for other moms or dads, but I don't think any men listen to this podcast. So we'll just go with other moms or even grandmas or even like caretakers, teachers, who either have had a recent diagnosis or maybe are worried that they are having a child currently that could have this and are kind of just struggling as to like what the next steps are. I would love you to kind of share your story from when Conor was born, because I know what it is and find it very kind of fascinating. Just to kind of give some moms just clarity, maybe if they're kind of in the weeds of this right now.
Got it. Right off the bat, what I'm going to say is trust your mom gut. We are given that mom gut, and with peace and love to dad. I know there are some single dads and some amazing, very, very active fathers, but there is there's a mother's instinct that is just undeniable. And I let people talk me out of mine it took almost 5 years. And I was right. I was ultimately right. And I knew about 18 months. And from 18 months to almost 5, I almost started to think I was the problem. And I was crazy because I was so convinced. And I'll kind of walk you through it. I was out of college. I started to work for the New England Center. Well, now it's the New England Center for Children. At the time, it was New England Center for Autism. And I never had kids. I was newly married, and I was working at this facility. And I was working with early intervention, newly diagnosed preschool-age children, nonverbal, a lot of behaviors, really struggling to communicate. And again, newly diagnosed children and parents dealing with this. So, and I was in my early 20s. And at the time, I knew everything. I didn't have a kid. I knew everything about everything.
This was you were the expert. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And, and anyway, that was kind of what happened. And then we ended up moving to Florida, and I ended up being a home-based therapist down in Florida because there was no centers per se that did this. So I love of working with children with autism. And I felt so comfortable and productive and helpful to parents who had nonverbal children or kids with high behaviors, and really just helping them have better life with their family and overall just be successful. So fast forward, I have Conor, and I become a stay-at-home mom. And I'm starting to watch Conor develop, and it was about his first birthday. And we went in to sing him happy birthday, and he flipped out, just screaming, like a little kid, just really didn't like it, didn't want any of it. And then as he got older, he was lining up his toys, like in in little patterns and things like that. And I was like, okay. And then started to speak and would watch TV shows. And then the show would end. And about 4 hours later, he was completely doing the show. Exactly.
And this is all before 18 months?
Well, it was like 18 months to, when he was starting to talk and walk. And then we started to walk. He was starting to walk on his tippy toes. Toe walking is a big sensory
that's
thing.
A sign? That's sensory thing.
So he was tippy toe walking, talking to himself, lining up his toys. And I was like, this is not looking right to me. And, but he was talking. He could say, Mommy, I want chocolate milk, or I want, and it was almost talking almost early and putting instant, and he had receptive language, like, hey, Connor, go get your shoes. He would go get his shoes. I mean, so there were things that were happening that were on pace, but then there were just things that were bothering me. I kept taking it to the pediatrician. So my first husband, Connor's dad, was just like, this is all you know. You taught autistic kids. You just think this is what you see. I'm like, well, do you not see it? Like, and so it became a thing between us, a pretty
Which
big
I imagine
thing.
would be pretty common.
I think the rate of divorce with any people or special needs or disabilities is high, especially autistic diagnosis families. I think the divorce rate is higher than the average, which is already startling. So there was that.
What were your doctors saying when you were bringing up?
Oh, he's talking.
Like
he's
that.
looking at you. We're talking like, early 2000s.
Check all the boxes.
Yeah, like, back, even because he's 25. So back then it was like, oh, no, he's looking at you and he's talking. And then I started to join play groups, and all the kids were like cooperatively playing with each other or following the scheme, like, hey, let's go play tag. And they were doing all these things. And my kid was picking bark off a tree in a corner. And I'm like, why is he over there? Like, and I kept reeling him back. Yeah, you can come over here, play with so-and-so. And then he would go, there was one house, they had a built-in bookcase, and he would always go sit in the bookcase, like in this little cove, and read books. And all the kids would play. And I was there hanging out with the moms, but I was always breaking my heart and trying to see. Yeah. So I was seeing all these things. So finally, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I actually got told by a neurologist at Boston Children's Hospital to get out of her office that my son was fine, and she had actual kids to see that had issues. And I was like, at that point, I was like, geez, maybe it is me. Maybe I'm the problem. And,
did you know anybody else at the time that had a child on the spectrum?
In my immediate group, no, not at that time. All the play group friends were neurotypical. And so I always had them over. And again, he always just broke off. And now I had twins. Now I had twins that were born behind Connor. And so I'm obviously very busy. I've got these two babies and I have him, but I'm still watching and seeing. And we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was at the pediatrician's office, and the twins had ear infections. And Connor was right on cue, walking on his tippy toes, talking about
And how old is he at this point? 5?
Almost 5 years old.
Okay.
Almost 5. And we're sitting in this pediatrician, and we're there for the twins. And she's looking in their ears, and then I'm just sitting there, and I didn't care about the twins' ear infections. So I was like, I looked, I said, do you see this over here? And she said, yeah. And I said, is that okay with you? And she's like, no.
Wow.
And I was like, validated. And I was like, help me.
Yeah.
Help me. So at the time, I needed 2 separate professionals to diagnose them. So I went with a developmental psychologist and then another psychologist. And we started going to their offices, and they did assessments and all the things. And literally on the same exact, it was a Friday afternoon, my phone rang from both of them. And they had exact findings that he was autistic and had what they considered Asperger's syndrome at the time, is what they were saying.
Yeah.
And that he qualified, and I had to start looking at IEPs and therapies and all their recommendations. And hit me like a ton of bricks, because I felt like I'd burned 3 years of intervention, which I was always like, early intervention is key. It's, what you need to do. And I so kicked myself. I was furious at myself, first and foremost. And then my husband, I was really mad and felt let down. And I felt just mad that no one listened to me. And then I just felt I let Connor down. And I was petrified.
What are some of the things that they could have, like when you say I missed out on 3 years of help he could have got, what are some of those things that,
like,
I don't know if it would have
social,
worked,
sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm on my,
oh, you're fine.
Just like getting in there and interrupting some of the self-stimulatory behaviors, which I was doing. I actually was doing. I was messing up his toys.
Because you knew what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, heels down, heels down. I was like stopping his walking. And I was, I was doing some of it, but it wasn't like, I was also a busy mom with 2 other babies. And it wasn't like focused on him. And also just what language gaps was he having or social reading the room or play skills or social skills, just things, because he wasn't fitting in his preschool and all these things, like things that we could have been doing probably more structured with more intention behind it than I was doing.
With intention,
kind of it situationally with him, and with a professional that wasn't his mom. Yeah, I mean, I'm too attached, right? So I'm not doing things neutrally. So that's what I felt like I lost. And
when you get that call, when you get a call like that, is there part of you that's also a little bit relieved because you felt like now I know what to do and now I can have a plan? Okay.
And I can get help, like real help for him. So yes, there was relief in there too. There really was. And then just sadness of like, and this is not an easy thing to say. And Conor knows. I mean, now, good Lord, I feel like it's amazing how it's all worked out. But there was a moment, in a private moment in a mom's heart. It's like I had pictured of having this little boy play football and baseball. And I don't know, I'm very American and just living in the South. That's what I pictured. I just pictured Little League and football nights and big groups of friends over. And I knew what it looked like from being in it with other families when I was not a parent. And just the fear set in of who am I raising now? Where are we going to go? The fear of that future and the unknown is why I love this show. And what I'm hoping these young moms who are watching your show and watching me and watching Lise Smith, Tanner's mom, and just look, don't be scared. The future can be so bright. And okay, yes, they are on a Netflix show, but who cares? They were blossoming. They're doing great. And I'm just glad people get to see it. Yeah. So hopefully we can show hope for adults.
I so appreciate your honesty saying that, because I think I can't imagine any parent not kind of having that initial reaction. So I think you just even sharing that probably gives somebody, because it's kind of like, I mean, with anybody, you have a baby and you, in your mind, think the roadmap that they're on. And then all of a sudden someone's like, actually, this is not your map. This is your map. You're taking a massive detour. And so trying to figure out your new normal, I guess.
And life is going to be so much harder for him. He's going to have to work 10 times harder to do what so-and-so is going to do. And that's hard to handle. And also the world isn't always a kind place. And the world isn't always kind, like the bullying and stuff. That's tough too, because he did do some weird stuff. It looked weird to other kids. Mm-hmm. And that was hard.
Did he go to traditional school or did you homeschool?
So no, I'm not a homeschool guy.
No, same.
God bless. Go to school. No, he went to public schools because then we ended up having a 4th child. And then by the time Conor was 7, my marriage was falling apart completely. It was just completely dissolving. I think the blow of Conor's diagnosis, I'm not blaming it, it was him and I. Him and I were the problem. Yeah. But I think the pressure and stress of the diagnosis, and then we had twins, because then the divorce rate in families who have multiples is higher. We were just double dipping all over the place.
It's like a double whammy.
And then we had a 4th child, and I think it just became a lot of pressure, and we didn't make it. And so my marriage was crumbling. So then you throw in a divorce, and now I have to go to work, and so I couldn't homeschool him. It just wasn't an option. So I went to public school, and I became a single mom with him. Had babysitters, had to work. It was rough. It was 2007 to 2012. 12 were very, very, very hard years on us. But I can tell you what, it forged the 5 of us together. Like, I don't even know. I mean, like me and the 4 children, we're solid. So, I mean,
well, you can see that on the show. Yeah, you can definitely see how close you guys are on the show. I mean, and how close they are. I love just watching how protective they are of him and how they look out for him. And it's a beautiful family dynamic to watch.
I have a favorite story of Connor's sister, Anna, because Connor and Anna are like adorable together.
Yes.
But Anna it was a Friday night. It was a single mom. Weather was getting nicer. And I was just like, let's just go get some pizza. And there's a place near us where it's like outdoor shops and restaurants. And so I was sitting outside by myself on a picnic table, and the kids were running around. There's an ice cream place. There was a band playing at the rooftop bar that I couldn't go to because I had 4 kids and I was by myself. Yeah. So I was like looking at all the people having fun up there, and I'm just down there with my pizza.
You and all your kids.
Yeah, my kids are just running around going crazy. And these little girls, so Connor was doing his thing, just running along the sidewalk and talking to himself and flapping his hands and skipping. And these little girls started to throw rocks at him. Mm-hmm. And I guess their parents were at the next picnic. I was oblivious. So Anna, at the time, she had this Hannah Montana guitar purse, and she wore it like a crossbody. She was little, and it was like a Hannah Montana guitar. She took that purse off and started choppering these girls out. Just took them out with her purse.
Taking care of her brother.
Yeah, and the little girls came and ran and told their parents that my daughter was. Wow. Anyway, it all sorted out, but it's so cute. Like, my kids will literally fight for him. So
have the other kids, like, I'm wondering in a family, like with the sibling dynamic, if they have one child on the spectrum, because I'm sure he has always required a bit more of your attention than the others. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever had, I don't know, any, not jealousy, but how were you able to kind of navigate making sure everybody understood and they almost didn't become resentful to him for taking up so much time or not being able maybe to go certain places or leave places early because he couldn't stand to be there anymore?
Yeah. I don't think I always handled it right. I do think we had instances, but the overall message has always been to my kids is we are a tribe. We circle the wagons. Like, and if you were down, we would fight for you. So get your butt in here. This is a team. And, and there have been times where maybe one of their other ones' pants were on fire and we had to rally. So I did try to, obviously Connor is the brighter fire. And I do think there are times, I think my daughter is the one I unfortunately leaned on the most because the boys always seemed a little more demanding, and she always had her act together and was always doing well at school. And I think the squeaky wheels got the oil. So I don't think I always handled it well. But I think it was character building for them. Yeah. But the bottom line was this overarching message of we're a team, we're a family, we fight for each other. We're gonna pick up for whoever. We love each other, and I wasn't going to tolerate anything other than that. That was my message for everybody.
Going back to your divorce, I kind of just something popped into my head when you were saying, when you got your diagnosis, you just felt a lot of anger towards your husband. Mm-hmm. Do you think, I know it's hard to know, but in hindsight, and for other people going through this, if you had handled it more as a team and felt more supported from the beginning, could it have ended differently? Yeah. Was it not Connor's diagnosis, but how he handled it? Was that a huge part of the divorce?
Absolutely, because it was a fissure right between us about it, and I do feel like that. And my advice to a couple, if there is the best gift you can give your kids is a healthy marriage. Mm. And you two have to take care of each other. And I think, I don't know how that divide, we should have aligned. We should have, and I don't know what it was for him. It was his first child. He was so proud of him. I just don't know if it could tolerate it not being, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. I don't know what he was going through. We never talked about it. And that was also probably part of the problem. But I do feel like, yes, if you are feeling like this wedge, if you can work through that, the best gift you can absolutely give your kids is to keep it together. It is not pretty. on the other side of that.
So to get a diagnosis, you need to go beyond your pediatrician, right? You need to go to...
I can't speak now. Back then, yes. I mean, the pediatrician was pointing, and I don't know what the recommendations are now. I've kind of been out of that game on that end for a while now. So, but at the time, I chose a developmental psychologist, and then we went to another psychologist who specialized with autistic kids, and they both had these assessments and tests that they ran.
So when he was in public school, so he's gone to public school and he's got like an IEP. He has
an IEP.
Accommodations. Okay.
Yes.
And so how was that like for other parents? The kind of thinking, I don't know if my child's going to be able to handle it. I mean, I know everybody's different, but was that okay for him to be in the public school setting?
It was until 8th grade. Everything
What
was...
happened in 8th grade?
8th grade, the bullying was unbearable. It was actually devastating to him. And I was not getting help from the school administrators at all, which very disappointing. I was still a single mom, but I actually started dating Connor's stepdad.
Okay, yeah, who's on the show?
Yeah, Tony. And we were early. I mean, I don't know. Tony's a different breed. We're really lucky.
He seems very patient on the show. Like things can just be going like mayhem, and he's just always just very calm, very calm.
He is, because I'm a lot.
Okay.
I'll just admit it. Oops, I'm a lot.
In a good way.
I think I'm almost probably the worst personality type for an autistic person to have as a
really.
I'm like,
you're hyping him up.
I'm like sensory overload. I'm like,
but you don't hype him up when you speak to him. Like you're very soothing and calming to him. At least that's how it appears on the show.
And I try to, and I also tried to. I tried to treat Connor, and I've always done this in a way that I almost feel like the world might be not so flexible with him. I'm not going to just. But I watch him. I don't want to send him into a panic, but I can tell when he's about to tip. But I do challenge that. And I also read the room when I can tell when he's about to kick off and he's had enough, and I pull it back. But Tony is always very even keeled, and Tony never knew anyone with autism when he met me. So he was always a little almost nervous around Connor. So but him and Connor, they're great together. So when Tony first met me, I think I don't know, but he helped, and he was like, "You got to get him out of this school." And I didn't have the resources, and Tony paid for Connor to go to private school, and we were just dating.
And was that better to be in the private school environment?
Yes, yes. We took him into a smaller school, and it was a blessing. I mean, and I think mental health wise and emotionally, I think it saved him. Academically, he took a few steps back, but we made up for it. So, but
I think sometimes people make the mistake of thinking people on the spectrum or with any sort of mental kind of hindrance maybe don't feel the same or can kind of like, you know, if somebody insults them, they don't understand it as much as like you or I were. So therefore it doesn't affect them as much. But was he always so aware of what people would say to him?
Yes, he was. And I think he gives very dramatic reactions to things. And I think kids thought that was funny. So, and he's very rule oriented. So they were making jokes about things that he didn't think broke his rules. And then he would really give these big reactions and it would just spiral from there. Usually it would be the situation. And Connor could come back and tell me, he's like, the teacher left the room for a minute and these boys did this. And I would be like, you know, they were picking their moments with him. One teacher, there was one incident where he had that Billy Bass fish, you know, that thing that flaps.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. It was a stupid novelty that hangs on the wall. And it's saying like, take me to the river. And Connor couldn't not sensory wise handle it. And the kids just pushed this fish when the teacher stepped out, and Connor would just lose it. And then I would get calls about Connor, and I'm like, what about these kids that are, you know,
doing it in the first place?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Because I think, would you say that everybody on the spectrum usually has some sort of like sensory issue? I feel like I hear that a lot, like maybe a range of it, but is that a big thing?
Say. Yeah, I think that's safe to say. Okay. I think like, you know, light, sounds, That was Conors. Sounds, foods, tastes. Conor needed a lot of pressure. I'm squeezing my arm because I was like, he needed a lot of proprioceptive input. Like Conor still, he will run, gallop, jump, push off walls, flap his hands. He'll still flap his hands. In fact, if you watch the show, you'll see it. You might see him do it. He has run a path in my front yard because he skips in the front yard every day. We have a track in our front yard.
Just needs the movement.
Yeah, he'll gallop and twirl. And we do have to tell him when he gets excited. I mean, he's a 25-year-old man. He's like almost 6 feet tall. It's a little unexpected when a man is running in the movie theater because like he's excited that Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
I'm like, that's a little freaky. You know, people are going to think there's a problem. So you can't, so we try to give him strategies like squeeze your hands, just squeeze your pockets. Like, don't go running through the movie theater because Sonic's on,
Yeah. Well, and I've heard moms talk about like being out in public and something happens that's out of their control, whether it's a sound from a speaker or a family at another table, which is that either like the audio or the sensory overload, and their child just starts freaking out, losing it. Do you have, is there something that always worked for you with Conor, like to kind of calm him down or calm the situation, or do you kind of just have to ride it out?
I mean, obviously those unexpected ones, just they will come out of nowhere, but I would immediately get to him and try to remove him if possible. Sometimes that's not always possible. And then there would be times I would just try to get him with me. And then for Conor, squeezing his joints to just help kind of reset him helped him. There was brushing. I used to do brushing with Conor when he ended his day. He loved that. But
like the dry brushing?
Yeah, he loved that. But when we're out and about, for him, it's just I can just grab him and I can just squeeze his elbows or his wrist. That just helps center him, and we just kind of get him back into a rhythm or whatever. I mean, now that he's older, he has learned to self-regulate and self-soothe himself, and he has his own strategies now. And I'm just so proud of him. But that came through high school and after that took a while for him to get there. We kept things in his pockets sometimes for him to rub, like little soft stones or, squeezy things. We would let him keep stuff in his pocket too. That was discreet.
Yeah. Did he, when he went to the private school, was he able to make friendships, or was he like, did he have a group? Like, I always think, like, I always say to my kids, like, who'd you sit with at lunch? Like, did you have someone to sit with at lunch? Did he have friends per se at school? Like, was he able to form those relationships?
He'll tell you he didn't. And there's two kids from high school too, out of that whole entire huge high school too, that I can think of, that maybe kept in touch with him after. I think he sees one of them once a year, maybe. Yeah. So he will come back and tell me he has friends, but he never gets invited anywhere. His phone doesn't ring. There's no texts. But you know what? Good for him though. He felt like he had friends when he was there. But no one ever asked him to do stuff. And so that's why I always felt like we have a big family, because Tony has 2 kids and I have 4, we have 6. And there was always something going on, always something to go do, whatever. So I always just felt like, he's fine. He's good. We don't need anybody. The heartbreaking thing was in elementary and middle when we would throw these lavish parties for him and invite the whole class, because we didn't know who to invite, because we didn't have names of people. Yeah. So and kids would come and get their goodie, but then he never got an invitation to anything else. That always hurt. Yeah.
As a mom, that's one of the things on the show that stood out to me. I remember you were speaking to your other son, and you, I guess we're talking about why he was going on a date and why it was important and stuff. And you said something like, the only people who text him is on our family group chat. Like, he doesn't get texts from anybody else. And I was just like, as a mom, I was like, wow.
Heartbreaking. I mean, that's not the case now. It's amazing now.
Now he's like uber famous. Yeah.
What's funny now is we've been out and about doing events, like in our communities and charity events, things that we really want to get behind. And kids that he graduated with will come up with them and be like, hey, I was in your blah, blah, blah class. Can we get a selfie? And I'm like, I just stand there like,
Yeah, you're like,
Where were you
I
then?
remember.
Yeah,
I remember.
yeah.
'Cause moms don't forget. You're just like,
I was like,
yeah.
But I was like, yeah, where were you then? You know, but, and I'm
That
like,
would be. I totally get that. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
I
petty.
totally get that. Okay, and the name just blanked me. His friend, the one from Clemson, from Tanner, yes.
Tanner.
So my son is actually at Furman in South Carolina, and his girlfriend's at Clemson. And so she was saying, does he still work at the hotel? He doesn't work there anymore, right?
He does, yeah.
Oh, he does? Okay. She was saying something that I can't remember, but there were all these people, like they had to, I don't know, like not get him security, but they had to be careful because all these people were like coming to the hotel to try to meet him and like try to get a glimpse of him. Yeah. And I was like, gosh, it's just crazy how much their life has changed.
Well, Connor works at our local Kroger. And
I love this because my son was also, his first job was a bagger at Kroger. And so when I saw that, I was like, Justin, look, you and him have the same first job. I said, and he loves it. You used to say how much you hated that job. And Connor loves it.
He loves it. He does not want to quit. I've said to him, I was like, you know, we have a lot of other things you could do. You know, you have opportunity. He's like, no, I don't. No, I love my job. And I've even said
what does he like about it?
He loves meeting people as they come through the line.
Okay.
He loves helping older people to their car.
Oh,
and he says he's got friends at work. He's befriended this older woman named Vicky. He loves this woman so much. We have to buy her souvenirs when we go on trips.
Have you met her?
I finally met her last week.
Okay.
I actually was like, hugging her, like Vicky's like, I want her autograph. I've heard she's this cute little old lady from New York, and he loves her, and she loves him, and he's like, we've got to get Vicky a present. He talks about Vicky all the time, but he loves it.
It's like his safe space too.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's very. And I've even said, do you want to go to a different department? Do you want to expand? No, no. I
almost wonder too, like bagging groceries is very methodical, right? And there is an art to doing it.
There's a rule
properly.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a rule. Yes.
So with food, bread
I
on
could
top.
definitely see how if someone started messing with his method, he would be like, "Stay in your lane. This is my job."
What's funny is back in November last year, before the show aired, I was shopping for Thanksgiving, and his manager pulls me. I bumped into his manager, and she's like, "Hey, listen. Can we get some help, some support? We're getting a lot of complaints from customers." And I'm like, about what? And they're saying that he talks to himself and he's swearing. And I'm like, Connor, that just didn't add up at all. And they said that he's singing a lot. And that's what he does.
What's wrong
he does
with singing? Yeah.
And while he's working, and I said, okay. And I was like, who's complaining? Is it like older people? Is it? And they're like, and she kind of looked at me. She goes, no, it's kind of like women your age. And I was like, oh, okay. So
parents.
So I said, okay. So I asked Connor, and so I said, okay, Connor, listen. When you're in the store and you're bagging people's groceries, it might be a little unsettling if you're talking about a show, because what he does is movie lines and stuff. Maybe that's unsettling.
Yes.
I said, so maybe
I love his movie lines and his movie lines accent.
But I said,
his English accent
and his British accent. I said, maybe when you're bagging groceries, you try to stay focused and stay on topic with what might be of interest to people. And I said, what do you think you could do? So he's like, well, I could maybe look at what they're buying and think of recipes, suggest things. And I said, okay, he's so sweet. And I said, but when you're out in the parking lot and you're singing and talking to yourself, you do you, man. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because he needs to decompress. So I was like, can that be the balance? Now, do you know how many people ask for his picture at work now? And I'm like, I bet it's the same damn women who are complaining about him now want to go get a picture with. I just, but it's like, but he's funny at work. He says, it's against company policy that I'm not allowed to take pictures at work. Because Kroger doesn't like pictures in the store. So he's very like, I'm working. I'm happy to say hello to you, but I cannot take a picture.
I can actually hear his voice saying that. I mean, he's just, I feel like, I don't know, I'm sure there's times when you pull your hair out, but I also think you must just spend a lot of time laughing.
Oh my gosh, we do. And the British, you never know in the English accent. Because it's my first
where
husband.
Does the English accent come from?
His dad's British. My first husband is English and had literally moved from London to marry me. So He is
wow.
British.
Yeah,
So-
because he loves to recite his movie quotes in his British accent, and it's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, how did this show come into your life? I mean, you're just living your life, doing your thing.
Yep.
As Connor says, you sell granite. That's your job. That was
Yep.
my
He's
mom
so proud
sells
of that.
granite. That's it. He is proud of it. I know.
I'm like, it's so funny.
I love that,
He said it in
though.
two
Yeah.
different episodes too. I was like,
I
what is
know.
it? What is
I was
he talking
like,
about?
I remember. I was like, okay, I guess she sells granite.
I sell granite.
Is that your actual job? Do you want to clarify if that's what you do?
I do sell quartz, marble, granite. I sell stone tops. I do.
Okay.
And what's really funny is a customer came in this week, and she came in. She's like, do I know you from somewhere? And so my coworker came up because she's recognized you from the show. And I guess she had just been to Kroger the week before and tried to get a selfie with Connor. And Connor said it was against company policy. So she was telling me that, but it was fun. So anyway, we're just living our life. We have watched US, because I remember watching the 2 Australian seasons and thinking, gosh, I wish they would bring this to America. Mm-hmm. And US season 1 dropped, and we had just finished watching it. So Jack, my younger son Jack, with all the tattoos that I hate, Jack. I was like, it looks like your mom didn't hug you enough. Like, what is going on here?
Oh, he's just expressing. He's trying to find his own identity. He's trying to keep up with Connor.
I guess I'm out of it. Like, everybody has tattoos these days. But
well, wait,
anyway,
how old is he?
19.
He's 19. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they do.
So anyway, he tweets or X, I don't know what you call it now, but in 2022, I think it was
yes. The Twitter, the Twitters.
I think in 2022 it was still Twitter. So he tweeted the director, and Connor and I do have a YouTube channel that I started.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we have a little YouTube channel I started a few years ago for family and friends, because of the funny stuff that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And so we have a little show. So Jack tweeted the director and said, hey, listen, if you ever do a season 2, I've got your guy. We live in Metro Atlanta. He's 23 years old. Here's his YouTube channel. You need to check him out. That was in like May of 2022.
Did you know he had done this?
No idea.
Okay.
None. And then in September, well, maybe he did. Maybe, I don't know. At some point in the summer, it came to my attention, like him and his cousin were like, oh yeah, we tweeted the director. And I was like, whatever. In September, Jack's the youngest in the family, the baby, the little like picks on everybody, annoys everybody, just does things like wants to watch you kick off. So he'll do something. So he comes running down the hall. He's like, he tweeted me back. And Connor's like, stop it. Don't play with my emotions. And I'm like, Jack, just cut the shit, like stop it. I was like, and Jack's like, so Jack goes and because nobody believes Jack. So he goes and Jack gets his phone. He's like, Mom, look. And I was like, oh my God, he did tweet this back.
Yeah.
So basically it was like an email saying, send more pictures of your brother. So I was like, I got it from here. Yeah. So then I sent pictures in an email, whatever. Next thing you know, this Australian producer's like, can we have a Zoom meeting with you guys?
Wow.
So we Zoomed in September, and then she's like, okay, it's very early days. You may or may not hear back from us. And I was like, well, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. So then the Australian director came back, can we Zoom again? So we Zoomed a second time. And then they sent an email saying, can we Zoom with LA? And so they had LA producers Zooming with us. So I was like, well, this is like now the third one. So then we had a second Zoom. So 2 Zooms with Australia, 2 with LA. And on the second one with LA, they're like, hey, the director wants to come visit you at your house. And I was like, wow. Okay. And I thought, okay, now this it was kind of a laugh,
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, I don't think the director comes to everybody's house.
No.
Like, I thought this is kind of real. So we actually said, we need to think about it, to be honest. I mean, because at that point I was like, I knew how the show was internationally known. And I was like, wait, this went from just kind of being funny to talk about to being serious. And then, so we had like a family meeting, and I brought in Connor's dad with it. And I was like, okay, he's going to be known all over the world. Like, this is going to change.
Does he still have a relationship with his dad? Like, they still see each other? He's in his life? Okay.
Every other weekend. Yeah. From even Connor's 25 years old. And he goes to his dad's house every other weekend. And from when he was like 7. It's he'll say to me, he's 20, he's a man. He goes, Mom, it's Dad's weekend. I'm like, Connor, you're 25. Like, it's your weekend and you can see who you want.
It doesn't need to be, or you could actually go every weekend. Yeah. He's got the rules down.
I was like, dude, just do your life. It's your weekend. And if you want to see Dad, but no, he's like, I believe that's Dad's weekend. So, okay. And because the younger ones haven't done that for years.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, this weekend is his dad's weekend, by the way.
And he doesn't miss a weekend.
No, he will not. And it's Friday night to Sunday night. It's so fun. Bless him. And so anyway, so then we had a meeting, and we said at the end of the day, it was down to you, Connor. And we Connor, and Connor's like, I want to do it. And so we invited the director, and it was still not guaranteed. And the director came and left. He came with his camera. I couldn't believe it because I had been watching the show since 2019. And here we are in January of 2023. And Kean O'Cleary is ringing my doorbell, like with a camera.
So is this the guy that you always hear them talking to?
He's got an Australian accent behind the camera.
Yes.
That's him. And I've always heard his voice, but I never knew what he looked like.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell you what he looked like. Yeah.
Nope. And so he came and he rang the bell, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And he spent a few hours at our house just visiting with all of us. And Connor, and 2 weeks later, Kean Zoomed us, Kean and the producer in LA, and they're like, we want you to be one of the new cast members for season 2. And Connor was like, absolutely. And then we hung up the Zoom, and Connor did this really, well, I always said it's an Irish jig. He did this dance in the kitchen. And then Connor corrected me. He's like, no, it was a Russian Kaczynski kick. Or I don't know. I was like, okay, whatever.
You have to say it. When you decide yes, like, are you still in your mind, like, we have not just signed up to be on reality TV and show our lives, but this is about him going on a date, which had he ever been on a date before?
No. Like his senior prom, he went with one of Anna's friends. His sister's friends. But he called that was the only. And so, and also the naivety of Lise and cluelessness of Lise always, not thinking it through. We didn't have a lot of friendship base to build off of, right?
Yeah.
He had sporadic friends, right? Like that maybe saw him once or twice because we initiated. So we didn't have a lot of friendship deposits in the bank to grow from in terms of relationships outside the family. And then all of a sudden, we think it's a good idea to throw him in front of cameras with women.
Blind dates, yes.
No wonder the poor guy had a panic attack.
Right.
Okay,
let's talk about that, because that was one of the most amazing and pure scenes, but also I imagine from a mom's perspective,
I freaked out.
Would have been really hard. So Connor, a lot of them do the speed dating on the show. And so he goes on the speed dating, and they're at this restaurant, and you've kind of talked to him a little bit about what he's going to expect when he gets there. And if people haven't seen the show,
thing.
Or you know what speed dating is, like, he sat at the table and then different girls came and sat across from him, and he asked them some questions. Then he had a piece of paper, and the deal was that then once they got up, before the next girl sat down, he would kind of on their sheet, ideally write down like yes, no, and maybe some notes, put it to the side, and then the next girl. Well, Connor's dates, the date sits down, and as she's talking, starts filling out her paperwork while she's sitting at the table.
What got me is the pen click. When if they said something he didn't like, he was like,
yeah. Well, and he said to her, do you like the city or nature or something, or the woods? And she said, oh, I like the city. And he kind of got this very like not happy look on his face, and he writes down doesn't like nature, click. And then she kind of like was like staring. She gets up and leaves, and the producer leans over and he goes, Connor, are you filling that out in front of them? And he though looked so wounded because he's like, wait, was I not supposed to be? Because he truly
and that
didn't
was
know.
Genuine, like, well, then I'm like, I kind of like, whoever put the show the event on should have been a work. You are dealing with people on the spectrum. Like, but one girl said she had cats. And he went, oh.
Yeah.
To
Because
me,
it's like he has to make a check or
it was the consistent.
Wait, that's one of his merch shirts now, right? That doesn't like
not
nature.
into nature. With
not
a no.
into nature.
He has a baseball hat too, and there's an X on the side. It's amazing.
Oh, but it was so pure. But then, what the heartbreaking part was that
he flipped.
Yeah, but so do you know what because he gets up and he flips out and he calls you and he sounds like he's having a panic attack. I don't know if it was, but
right. Well, so
it sounded like it when he was calling you.
At this event, because Conor does not drive. So Anna drove him to the event. And Anna was in the vicinity. She was just away, because Anna was going to drive him and take him home. So Anna brought him, and then she was, I don't know where, she was in some parking lot somewhere, just goofing around on her phone. So and Anna was like, why didn't they call me? I was there. But they ended up calling me. The producers called me and like, hey, listen, he's losing it. He's not okay. Have you ever seen him have a panic attack? And believe it or not, I never had. I had seen him have outbursts and transition issues. And believe me, it's not like but a true full-on meltdown panic, that was not Conor's deal. So I'm like, what are you talking about? He's having a panic attack. He's not okay. He's had to remove himself. So they put me on the phone with him. And when I heard his voice, I died because I was about an hour away. I was in downtown Atlanta. And I knew if I had gotten in my car right then, I couldn't. And I was, I wanted to just run and get him.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad I couldn't because
he had to kind of
he fought through it. And he went back in, which was the ultimate goal. And I'm so glad he did. But what they cut out a lot of my phone call with him. And I know why.
Oh, they did?
They did. Because I know
why.
Because it was a movie. Because Conor relates a lot of his life. TV, the way Conor copes and I think masks in his life is he uses scenes in TV shows and movies that feel like whatever moment he's in, and he uses some of the words from those TV shows, I think, to help him. I've seen him do it his whole entire life.
Okay.
So I did Rocky. He loves the Rocky movies. So they cut it out, and I hate it because at the end, I was pretending to be the boxing coach, and the last thing you hear me say is, get your ass back in there. So it sounded like I was being mean to him. But we had been high. So basically I told Conor, I was like, we got calm, and I said, you're Rocky and you're running through the streets, and Rocky's got to go fight this battle of his life. And so I did the Rocky. I said, now Conor, you're running to the top of the stairs. And we did this whole visual. I said, you are at the top of the stairs, Conor. Turn around and look at the city. You put your arms in. And I was like, and then I go, are you there? Are you at the top of the stairs? Do you have it? Do you have it? He goes, I'm there, Mom. I got it. I'm there. I'm like, I go, no, get your ass back in there. And he goes, okay. But they cut out the Rocky stuff and just did it.
Oh, they just said, get your ass back in there.
And I was like, okay, I look like a harsh mom.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard you say that some people have said that they felt like you're too harsh with him on the show, which obviously a lot of that is in the editing. But do you feel like you've tried to parent him similar to your other kids? Like, have you tried to, you said like how the world was going to treat him, but what's your kind of advice to people who are, don't want to rock the boat?
Start how you want to end is how I try to look at it. And how do I want to end for Conor? I want Conor to have an amazing, successful life. I want him to be able to roll with the curveballs that will be thrown at him. Not if, they will be. Life is going to, you've had curveballs, your kids have had curveballs. I've had curveballs. Conor has to know how to cope with them. Again, I have been criticized that I don't let him be his true self or feel his true feelings. I try to talk him out of his. Nobody knows Conor better in this whole entire world than me, so that's fine. Yeah. You've seen me for 5 minutes on a show, and you think you know. That's cool. That's fine. At the end of the day, I need to get Conor to a place what's called optimal anxiety, where he can grow and he can learn to cope. Not sheer panic. You saw how I acted with him when I found him in sheer panic. I took many steps back. It's okay. Let's breathe. Let's get to a place where we can think straight. I do not want my child in sheer panic. Nobody's functional. I'm not functional in sheer panic. Let's get to a place where we can think. But I'm also not going to let Conor sit in complacency and comfort. We're not going to live there. So, but I think Conor's doing pretty well.
Well, he's doing really well. Okay, so for someone who's not Conor and is not having what's happening right now in his life, or even for the parent of even an older teen child on the spectrum who's, kind of maybe watching this show, and now they're being forced to think about things that they haven't thought about their child growing up. Will they get married? Will they have kids one day? Are they capable of that? I mean, have you seen people on the spectrum have healthy, functioning relationships and families? Like, now that you're kind of in that, have you been kind of privy to that? Or
yes, I've actually seen some really helpful things. Recently, a mom messaged me on TikTok. Her name is Jody, and talking about her son, who's Connor's age. They live in Anderson, South Carolina, and she just told me her son is working. He doesn't drive, but he does drive. Sorry, he does drive. He's working, and he just bought a plot of land that he's paid off. And I actually did start to look at some of her content to see her son, and he's clearly on the spectrum and has his own, uniqueness about that, but is killing it. And he hasn't been on, a Netflix show. And so I think it's all about parenting and the support. And I understand that, financially it's a real thing to have to, get the resources, and a lot of it's not covered, and you have to pay all these things out of pocket. And that is a real pain point for some parents. And I think people do look at the show and they think, oh, Connor's parents, they're rich, and Connor has,
can afford it,
he had, I raised him as a single mom for 5 years. And until Tony came in our life in 2012, it was, I almost lost the house we were living in to bank, because I couldn't pay the rent, the mortgage. I had child support, but I had 4 kids and it didn't scratch it. And I was working, and it was very, very hard. So, they see what they see on the show, which is not. There was many years in Connor's life where my kids were like, Mom, I remember hearing you cry in your room. I didn't know what I was going to do. So it goes to show that even with limited resources, you just follow your gut, help where you can, and get the resources that you can that are out in your community. Try to reach out and see what's there with the schools, and, what can you get? You have to get creative, and you can't lay down on the couch and cry. You do have to get up and pedal your bike. Like I told Connor, pedal or the bike falls over. We just got to pedal.
Yeah.
And there were many years where I was just like,
a lot of, a lot of times when you did want to lay down and cry.
I did.
Yeah.
A lot.
If someone does have limited resources, what are there 1 or 2 things that you would highly recommend above other things in terms of just help, or from a doctor perspective, or what did you find the most helpful?
I think what I wanted for Connor was to be a productive, contributing member of society. So whatever resources we're going to, and that's what I told you, I was so focused on school and career, or for him, that I forgot about the love life and the social stuff, but I thought that is the biggest thing. So what tools and resources can you find for your child that are good? Because also Connor getting up every day and having a purpose, he loves his purpose, and it's going to bag groceries and get carts. And he's so happy in that lane. I don't care if that's what makes him happy. We have to get realistic about what's sustainable for a lifestyle he would want. We actually have some blessings now for him that he will pursue. But contributing member of society is what, and him to be mentally okay. So that was kind of my goal. So whatever resources supported that goal, but I think it's so individual to your family. What is going to help you, have a happy look at the whole person, happy, successful. But, it's not healthy to, my child doesn't like to work, so I guess I'm just going to let them stay and watch video games. You got to pull them out of their comfort zone, and it isn't going to be pretty, and it is going to be hard work, and there is going to be resistance and fighting and anger. And I had all of it. Connor, we've had instances of physical aggression because he didn't like something that was happening. He could never get his hair cut. There were physical outbursts. There's things that are personal to our family and Connor's journey that I'm not going to share, but it's not all hearts and flowers. And we had some ugly moments. And it's how you deal with them and then get through them. But because the ugly moments may happen or could happen, you can't live in fear of them. And I think my biggest advice is just run toward it Because the thing with autistic individuals, they love their routine, especially if you have a child who just wants to stay in front of video games and doesn't want to come out or has such anxiety. You've got to find a way to successively build small baby steps to a goal. So find the end goal behavior and then back down what little steps and eat the elephant one bite at a time. You cannot go take the elephant and eat it. So what do you want for your child? And maybe if you have a teenage child, figure out what do they want. Find that goal and then break it down into baby steps and start stepping toward it. And then deal with each thing as you go. But I promise you, and I've promised Conor this, and he has felt it, the success, the feel, the confidence boost of getting past that baby step, it's indescribable. And I've watched my son transform. And, you know, life is at the other side of your comfort zone. So you got to push them. Even if
have you always been, exactly. Have you always been honest with him and open with him about his diagnosis? Like from the time he could know?
Yes. And the way that started was Anna and Ben, the twins, started to see his behaviors. And they're like, why is he doing that?
Okay.
And I said I had a moral issue of telling the twins before I told him. Because we hadn't told Conor. And I was like, if I feel like the twins are ready to know, I have to respect Conor's dignity enough to tell him first. And his dad and I were divorced, and it wasn't pretty at the time, but we sat down to breakfast with him together. And Conor can tell you right where he's like, we were at the original pancake house. We sat near the window and you told me, and he said he was scared. He thought he had a disease at first, but then we described it to him as just the way his brain works and that he was not going to die from it. And then what we did was we got Conor really comfortable with it. And then we had Conor tell his siblings.
Oh,
this is what
I love that.
This is what is going on with me. And this is what I've got. And we had a family meeting and we had Conor present it. That kind of empowered
on his own. On his own
own
terms.
Yeah.
I love that. You have great advice. Okay. Well, I know what everybody is wanting to know is, first of all, did he find love on the spectrum? And did he continue to date afterwards? Because it kind of ended the season with like kind of a relationship. No, we weren't really sure if that was going to continue to go on.
So
I don't know if you can share. I don't know.
I can. So Emily, and it was on the social medias now. Emily and Conor really liked Emily when they were wrapping the filming. I mean, he was really into it, and they went on a few dates last summer. So they ended last May filming, and he was very into seeing Emily and seeing where that could go. I mean, he was really nervous with the hand holding. So they did go on a few other dates over the summer. And then I think it was in the fall, Conor kind of came to me and said, hey, I really like Emily. I just don't know. I feel more of a friendship. And what was odd, it was within a week or two, Emily's mom reached out to me and said, hey, Emily's expressed more of a friendship vibe with Conor than romantic. And I said, that's absolutely fine. I said, to me, that's a win, right? We've got friends. We've got two fantastic young adults. Emily's a wonderful, I love her. She's actually so cute and spunky.
She's great.
She's so spunky.
She is.
And she takes that nod into nature thing right on the chin. She's so, she actually
She was the one that was not into nature.
Yeah. And she poses with the shirt on with Conor. I mean, she's so, she is the best energy. Yeah. And Emily's actually dating a young man named Sam now. And actually Sam and Conor and Emily have gone out and done things.
Oh, wow.
So it's friendship, and that's great. So Conor is still seeking love. And I'll leave it there.
Yes. Okay. That's for next time. Okay. So what I know that I say you and Conor, because you and Conor kind of come as a team a lot. Yeah. But what do you guys have coming up, or what does he have coming up?
We got some cool things. So in at the end of July, we're doing a thing called TanCon, which is a kind of a dude on the TanCon. We're doing a Tanner and a Conor meet and greet out in Anaheim, California, in Orange County. Somewhere out there. I don't know. Exact details are still getting worked out as we speak, but it's going to be amazing. Conor and Tanner are amazing together. It's almost like having, I joke, it's like having Tigger and Eeyore.
Yeah.
And I have the Eeyore.
Yeah. So this is a question for you. Does Conor look at Tanner and like acknowledge and understand that he's also on the spectrum? Like, does he
Absolutely. Yeah.
like in a different way? Like, okay. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And does he,
and Conor almost like there's times where Tanner's so bubbly and sweet and boisterous. And Conor, we took them to the Georgia Aquarium together, Nikki and I and our kids. We had a blast. Nikki and I laughed our socks off. Connor's like the little professor and wants to give facts. And Tanner's just like, look at he's just so beautiful. And so there were times where Conor was like, Tanner, I'm trying to tell you about this. Like, and we're like, these two are going to have it out.
Oh, he does have a beautiful personality. His dating. Okay, I want to ask you one question that I forgot to ask you before you go. Her name has escaped me. The one with the glasses and the dark brown hair on the show?
Danny.
Who lives with her aunt? Danny, yes.
Danny's awesome.
Okay, so I heard, I don't know if it was you or someone else was saying, so Danny, is she a little bit older or in like maybe her late 20s?
Yeah, maybe late 20s.
I mean, she's in her 20s. Yeah. But a big part of her storyline in the dating is that she talks about kissing and she, has a little bit more of a sexual storyline to her in terms of the things that she's interested in. And I have seen some people kind of like backlash from that, saying that they shouldn't be showing things like this, like it's not appropriate. And I'm just kind of wondering your thoughts on...
I think Danny is an intelligent young woman with sexual and emotional feelings and love to give. And I think she advocated, and I think she was really like, I want to tell this side of my story. And Danny is a natural, normal woman with feelings. And there's not one thing that I know this director, the only thing he cares about is how the people's stories that he's telling, how the actual people feel about it. And he really doesn't give a hoot about anyone else's opinion. It's really about, and I think Danny really wanted that. And I've met Danny, her aunt and her uncle, Sandy and Patrick. They're amazing human beings. Danny is phenomenal.
I love their interactions with her.
I love when they do so good with her. They're such good people.
Yes.
And I know they were even apprehensive of like, is this too much? But at the end of the day, it was Danny's wishes. And, I think it's just here to say is like, she may be on the spectrum and have this diagnosis, but why is it okay for all these other people on Love is Blind? Did they misbehave like crazy?
Yes,
and everybody's
Love Island.
They think it's great.
Anything.
People eat it up and they love it. And it's like, Danny, there's nobody is taking advantage or capitalizing on anything. I think everything's done with everybody's blessing. So if that's the case, and this was at Danny's, I think, insistence of I want to tell the side of my dating life. And I'll be honest, and she's Conor's getting a little more vocal about his physical needs to us as a family. We're kind of not prepared for it, but he is a 25-year-old man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And my 23-year-old son and my 19-year-old son, they can have their guy talk and everybody's cool with it. And then Conor says something and everything. So it's like, I think it's like we have to start removing that stuff. And that's kind of my opinion. I mean,
the stigma that they don't have those same feelings. Yeah. Right. Well, good. Okay. Tell us where people can find you on socials, you and Conor.
Okay. Awesome. Conor is Conor Tomlinson and then the number 5 on Instagram. He is on Facebook. We don't do as much there. TikTok, I think it's still Conor Tomlinson 5. His TikTok is awesome. My daughter runs it. It is so funny. You'll just get a chuckle out of his TikTok.
You will just have, it's like your daily dose of just you. I mean, and that's what I said to you before. Sorry to interrupt you about your socials, but it was such a great family show that we watched. Like my kids loved it. I watched it. My husband watched it. I mean, it just was the most beautiful, pure, honest way to see people interact with each other. It was just beautiful.
I love it. Thank you for saying that.
We'll put all your socials up on the show.
And then I'm
too.
Smithinson 8. And I think when Tony and I got together, he's like, teams don't break up. So we took Tomlinson and Smith and made Smithinson. So that's why my Instagram is Smithinson. Because he's like, we're going to be a team. We got to have a team name. So we named ourselves Smithinson.
Well, if people have not watched, they can find you on season 2. I definitely would recommend season 1 as well, because I love that too. But season 2 is where you can find Conor and Lise. And If you do get to Nashville, I know you're super busy, but maybe Conor will have a speaking engagement in Nashville. Maybe we'll have you back. I'd love to meet you in person.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. We're me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Speak soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.